Bayonetta 2 is one of those games that I totally lose track of. This doesn't happen that often, and especially being EIC now, I really try not to let this happen, but I completely lost a frame of reference on when this game was coming out. Like, we got, like, you know, you were playing preview code way back in the day, or like it came out in Japan and you streamed like the whole game on Twitch, and then like the game was all English, and so we basically played it, you know, however many months ago, and then...
Yeah, that's what happens when they put out a game like in Japan early, and it is all in English. You kind of like, oh, it's coming out here. Well, we kind of already played it, you know.
And the game still isn't out yet.
Yeah, that's
it's coming out at the end of this month.
Yeah, there's like there's a Nintendo email today saying like ages 17 and up Nintendo World Store launch event with Bayonetta 2. So I was like, wait, one, it's not out yet. What the hell? And two, like, what's this 17 and up event Nintendo's doing? Whoa, what's going on?
It's potentially a 17 and up kind of game. It is a racy game, although it is very colorful. It is on a arguably family-friendly console exclusive to the Wii U. 9.8, sir.
Yeah.
It's a high score.
That's an extremely high score.
You stood in front of me and you said, I sometimes feel a little... I could lean back and forth on scores. You know, something could be a little bit higher, something could be a little bit lower. But I am sticking firmly to my score of 9.8. I gave Grand Theft Auto 5 a 9.8. Mr. Ryan Stevens, who's no longer with us, gave The Last of Us a 9.8.
Yeah.
To me, that's what a 9.8 means. I have not played the original Bayonetta or Bayonetta 2. So I'm going to have to take your word for it. But there are people out there, their scores higher than 9.8. There are people out there saying a lot of amazing things about Bayonetta 2. And from what I can tell, it just looks like it never stops throwing crazy stuff at you. It's a kind of game where you're like, this gameplay is so rewarding, I want to get better at it, and this world is so nuts that I can't wait to see what the next boss fight is. Am I getting there?
Yeah, you're definitely on the right track, and I think something that is frustrating to me is, like, as you said, I was completely confident. It's funny because I think this is like the most confident score I've ever given, and it's the highest score I've ever given. But I can't like sit here and compare it to Grand Theft Auto 5. I can't sit here and compare it to The Last of Us because I think what it's trying to achieve is totally different than what those games are trying to achieve. But for what it's going for, it nails it. Like, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that this is absolutely one of the best character action games I've ever played.
And character action games are not games that typically get super high scores because they can get repetitive. You can kind of hit a wall with the combat where you're like, okay, I've learned all I need to learn about the combat. This isn't difficult anymore because I've kind of hit that, midway mark where it's just like, all right, I've learned all the combos and now I'm just repeating. I'm just waiting to fight that last guy and finish the game up. You played this game a ton, Mike, even before this guy got his hands on it. And I know that this is just kind of what happens usually with Damiani. But it's like this guy. Do you agree? Is this game a 9.8? When you were playing it on the stream, were you like, "Wow, people are gonna just go nuts for this"?
I mean,
game?
it felt just like picking up where Bayonetta left off in terms of like just being able to jump back in. It was very familiar, and the beginning of that game, what they do with the references they start doing with the Sega franchise references, like there's like a subtle nod to like Crazy Taxi in there. I was like, whoa, what's going on? Like, this is insane. Like, it doesn't, and from what I played, it doesn't like let up. And it eases you in, I think, slow enough that like it just throws remedial enemies at you. You're gonna get hit by them if you're like new to the game, but it's like they don't do that much damage. So it's like, all right, I'm getting used to like the dodging and stuff. And then they just keep piling it on and piling it on. And while I feel like the game, for some people, like you can play it on an easier difficulty, you can button mash, you can get like, your satisfaction out of like, whoa, look, I'm doing all this cool stuff. But like on the harder difficulties, you have to like know the nuances of the combat. You have to really understand to read enemies, when to dodge, and you have to like actually be able to string competent combos together. Otherwise, you're just gonna like, you'll just get like hammered and stuff as well. So it's like knowing when to dodge at the right time, when to unleash your combos, and then like kind of like sit back and like read the enemy again. And that's very like rewarding. And I think the best part of that game is learning the tells of enemies, because there's like, Platinum has this trademark of doing like flashes or some kind of like flash like trigger to like make the player, help the player react to when it's supposed to dodge. But then they throw you some curveballs in there too. Like sometimes there's just so much going on screen, like all these like trains exploding, like planes blowing up backward, buildings falling down. It's like so much going on screen. You just like, I gotta see this one little flash, and like you're gonna miss it so often that eventually it's like, man, I gotta like react. Like I have to actually have good reaction skills, and to be able to do that, I think to some players is very satisfying. And in that regard, that Bayonetta 2 was like doing that really well. And then of course, like we won't, like don't watch this clip if we show you a clip, but like the last level like Easter egg, if you use the Star Fox outfit, is so amazing. I was like, really, guys?
And
this
you
is
brought
like
up a really
awesome.
good point in the review that that wasn't DLC. That wasn't something
yeah.
that you had to buy or some bonus thing like a pre-order bonus or something. That it's so rare that you have something that not only just changes the skin of something or adds music or more sound effects or just like a fun visual thing, but totally changes the dynamic of how you play that that level. So yeah, don't see stuff like that often.
Yeah, I think both of your points are extremely well said, and there's just something I want to bounce off with Damiani and tie it back into what you were saying, is their action games are not very approachable for some people. I know people that played Ninja Gaiden 2 and they're like, I can't do this. Or there are even people in this office where they played Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and they just couldn't get down parrying, and so they stopped. Bayonetta 2, I really think can be appreciated by almost everyone, and I really love the way that it's designed, because if you put it on the easiest difficulty setting, and if you just keep mashing the like Y combo, you can almost get through that entire game. It's very forgiving, and you can also keep buying like restorative items. If you just want to experience the story, you absolutely can. But what I love is it doesn't sacrifice that depth, because at the end of every chapter, you get ranking. It's either pure platinum all the way down to stone is the worst one. And what's great about that is if you're the type of player that wants to unlock things, everything in the game is actually pretty expensive. If you want to get all of the cool moves, if you want to get all of the cool weapons, if you want to get all of the cool costumes, you have to do well. You have to get like gold or higher if you want to really start getting all those things, or at least silver. And so I appreciate that it's not really punishing you if you can't do those things yet, or if you're intimidated by those things yet, but it's also rewarding you if you take the time to do it. And I love that so much.
It's interesting that the other two games that I brought up, Last of Us and Grand Theft Auto. I mean, the Grand Theft Auto is a comedy, but like they're definitely much more realistic, much more dramatic, and you kind of need to have that kind of narrative gravitas to like potentially add more meaning to a game or add more meat to a game to get up and reach that score. Do you want to see more games like this? Because the way I look at it, this game almost didn't come out. And we did get it, strangely, on this Nintendo console, so it is weird to have this extremely boisterous sexual game, coming to us from Nintendo. But it seemed like they took advantage of the opportunity. It's like, okay, we're making another Bayonetta. Let's literally not stop until our imaginations just completely run dry. And let's try to put as much stuff as we can in the game. Is there any other kind of special sauce to it other than that of just like more?
It sounds like such a minor thing, but for as much insanity as there is in that game, it goes out of its way to explain it. It's one of those games where you don't have to go and read up on everything if you don't want to. You can ignore that stuff, and I think the action is so well designed that you can still enjoy it. But all of the answers are there. Like, we were talking about Senran Kagura earlier, and in that game, the clothes just tear off of the girls because that's what they want you to see. Here, she's a witch. Her suit is made of her hair. It's part of the whole like Umbran mythology. That's part of their attacks. Maybe it was like it's all explained, and then you pick up these books that you don't have to read. It's funny to me how much that game cares about its lore.
And that actually brings us to one of the final talking points that could potentially be a bit uncomfortable for people to talk about, but this is a very sexual game, and some of the people think that it's a little too much, that she shows off so much skin that the camera really just gets like right there on her butt, like that it's a little too much and it's hard to take seriously. And then like the flip side of that is that she's such an empowering character, and so it's interesting. It's one of those games that helps us really kind of define like how do we want to see women in gaming. And what what's kind of our line as far as like, okay, that's too much. I can't take that person seriously, or I don't enjoy that. And you didn't feel that way. You didn't feel that way. What do you think about this debate? I mean, do you think it's worth talking about? Do you think people that are uncomfortable, like they have every right to be uncomfortable? I mean, it's just a fine line as far as what you can take.
All I'll say on that matter is that if you're playing through the game and it genuinely detracted from your experience, it's your opinion. If you didn't like that, then so be it. There's nothing wrong with not liking that. I mean, I still hope that people can appreciate everything else about the game if they dislike, the character or the representation of, women in the game because of Bayonetta. I personally saw it as kind of a parody. I kind of saw it as like it's platinum. They go over the top. They are purposely poking fun at a lot of like tropes, and that is just their style. they're not trying to like make a bold statement. They're just trying to be like, this is just ridiculous. This is insane. This isn't real. This is like just fantasy, and we're just like making fun of everything that you're seeing here, and like it's meant to be like have a good time. However, if you perceive it a different way, that's fine. I just took it as like, I don't think it's trying to be either side. Like the argument has like two sides, like either it's a empowering female or it's completely sexist. Like I take the stance like, I don't think it's really either. I think it's just like a joke. Like this isn't trying to be serious. If it was trying to be serious, we'd probably have a different discussion about this, but
right.
That's how I take it. It's just like a joke. This is what Platinum does. Like, you know, the final boss of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Like, you know, I don't take offense that that's how they perceive Texas. Anyone from Texas is like that. It's like, that's cool. Like, you know, it's hilarious. It's like it's a joke. I was like, you know, I get it.
But yeah, do you think most action games are a joke? I mean, it's like not a joke, but I mean, you have something like Devil May Cry. It's like this we're not really supposed to believe this world or this character. Like we're really not supposed to believe that these things are happening. Like there's no, like, for example, right at the beginning of the game, she's flying this fighter jet through, and it's like you'd think she might be a little nervous that who's flying that fighter jet? You know, it's like, does that guy watching what she's doing and is being careful not to like crash? Like how does she know the plane's not just gonna go flying into a building? But you said it does. Her friend gets kidnapped. She's got to go into hell to get her back.
Right.
So like, you do kind of care, but at the same time, you don't. You know, like to me, that would be a fine line.
Yeah.
Were there any moments where you rolled your eyes, or you're like, okay, that's too much, or were you were you jamming with it the whole time?
That's the thing is, there was never really a moment where I'm like, okay, they're betraying this character. I totally respect what Damiani thinks, and I get where he's coming from. And I think if anyone makes it feel comfortable, they absolutely don't have to like that. But I think they are saying something with Bayonetta, and I think everything that happens in Bayonetta 2 is completely true to her character. They never betray that, and they never cross that line. And I think that's really important. And there was another reviewer from US Gamer that I think brought up a really good comparison, and it made me think for a long time. I'm still thinking about it, where he compared Bayonetta to Beyonce. And when I think about Beyonce, especially if you watch her most recent videos or videos for a while, they're very sexual. Mm-hmm. She is in revealing outfits, and she is even flaunting it. And I think a lot of people view Beyonce as a powerful woman. But I think there's still this sort of like ingrained notion with video games where video games are primarily played by men. So if men
and designed by men, this is mostly a team of guys. I'm assuming.
But a woman designed Bayonetta.
Okay.
You know, and it's like people don't care enough to like go and check that stuff out. They just want to hurl insults at it. But it's not. I don't even think that matters. It's like I think people think that video games are primarily designed by men, and so when you have a game that features a woman like this, that they think men are playing it for a very specific and obvious reason. But Beyonce, like everyone listens to music, so we can maybe think about this in different ways. And I don't have any hard evidence for that, but I think there's some truth to it, and it frustrates me a lot.
Two names that came up when I was talking about this with people were Pam Grier and Elvira. You know, I don't know if you know Pam Grier. She's in a lot of films. You know, still around, still in movies, but she was in a lot of films. She definitely showed off some cleavage and punched some guys in the face back in the day, and was a very empowering character. Was a very sexy character, and that was her identity. You know, and like she, you know, like Bayonetta does. She uses that. That empowers her. You know, she's like, that's the way I want these characters to be. That's what I'm going to be known for.
There are other really great examples of women in games. Like if you think about Commander Shepard, the female version of Commander Shepard, I think that's a very strong, really empowering woman. But I think we have to be careful. Like when we say strong women in games and we list examples, we don't want to like say they have to be exactly like this. They have to be presented in this way. They have to wear this type of outfit. I think that's just as dehumanizing as anything else. And so I think you can have a character that is like very sexual and have that be positive.
When Bayonetta 1 came out, were you expecting a Bayonetta 2? Did you think that would make sense, or was this kind of just like Heavenly Sword? It was like, oh, fun new IP, and then maybe they'll move on to something else.
Not after how poorly it sold.
I wasn't either.
I didn't think there would be another.
Do you think the high scores are going to affect sales? Do you think is this going to affect sales of the Wii U?
Not brutal honesty, not enough. I think the best they can hope for is that they could point to the scores and maybe get like Platinum could get picked up to have. The only way the 3 is happening is either Nintendo is extremely generous and they want a third one, or they buy Platinum at some point, or other publishers just see like, wow, like maybe we shouldn't have passed up on publishing this one. Like let's pick up the third one, and it'll be multi-platform for the third one.
I think when a game is getting the kind of praise that Bayonetta 2 is having, I don't think it'll sell exceptionally well, but it'll have this super positive like brand on it. Like, wow, this is a critical darling. I think maybe it won't be by Nintendo, but I think there is a chance that we could see a Bayonetta 3 just because of how well received it was.
It's funny to see games like Dark Souls 2 and Bayonetta 2 going up against each other's games. Like those cannot be two, completely different games. I mean, they're both action games, but interesting games popping up at the beginning of the year. Would you have thought Bayonetta 2, Game of the Year contender?
When I played it at E3, I was actually like kind of lukewarm on it because I was like, I love Bayonetta 1, like pretty much as much as I love Bayonetta 2, and I was like, this is just more of the same. But once I played the full experience, it took everything in Bayonetta 1 that was good and got rid of all the bad stuff, and it turns out that's an incredible thing. And you kind of have to go through the whole game to get that feeling. Like, never in my life have I finished a game and been like, I'm not a 100%er, I'm not. I go through the story and I finish it and I'm happy. I swear to God, I'm going to do every possible thing that there is to do in Bayonetta 2. It was that much fun, and like until every single check mark is done, like I don't want to stop.
You guys have almost convinced me to buy a Wii U. I'm close. I'm getting there. I'm not there yet.
Zelda, will it do it?
Maybe, but I mean, what? That's 2 years off. When are we?
Supposedly
Right?
next
Yeah.
year.
No,
supposedly.
not next year. No, there's no way.
Supposedly.
But it looks like fun. Maybe I'll steal one from work and play it.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, we've said lots of great things about it, so we'll wrap it up. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.